So here we are, and we're going to talk about eclipses. And I will admit, with all of my travels, I was in Sedona for a couple of weeks, and then instead of coming home, I had to go to Chicago for 3 days of meetings. And so I just got back the night before last. I slept 9 hours last night, thankfully, because I'd slept 2 hours the night before. And so here I am kind of in the raw. I don't have a slideshow ready for you. I did manage to put the charts in our chart file so that we can show that. But I will be, talking to you today about eclipses in general, but most specifically, I'm going to talk to you today about the eclipse season we're having right now. And this is an interesting and an important eclipse season because this is the crossover between the movement of the lunar nodes from the sign pair that they have been in since last July, where it switched then to Aries North Node and Libra South Node. And now we're getting ready for the sign pair to switch to Pisces North Node and Virgo South Node. The lunar nodes move slowly backwards, and they take about 18 months to be in each sign. A full lunar node return is 18.6 years. The lunar nodes are basically a calculation of the path of the sun and the path of the moon and where they cross over. And if you think about what that means in terms of life, we can think of the sun shining power, choice, vitality, and the moon holding memory, tradition, the heart, the soul. And we can imagine that as they cross, the sun lights up the history, it lights up the memory, it lights up the soul consciousness, while it's also pointing direction toward the solar energies of manifestation. So we're working with the heart and soul that comes from the moon at that deep level, and the manifestation, the vibrance, the light coming onto the planet. So when we have eclipses where we have the sun and the moon in a position with the earth where it can, be radical, right? We can have that solar eclipse where literally the sky goes dark for a moment. We can have the lunar eclipse, a full moon, but it's got this extra firepower. We have a more potent moment than we have every month, where we always have a new moon and a full moon. And we will have eclipses, at least 2 every 6 months, but quite often we'll have 3. And I believe technically we can have more than that. But they tend to, as you have more, they tend to be more partial and not so quite exact. The Buddhists would say that in a solar eclipse, your intention, your thoughts, words, and action are amplified 10,000 times. And in a lunar eclipse, thought, word, and action is manifested 1,000 times. So in that religious tradition, there will be pujas, ceremonies, meditations that go like all day long in order to bring about the most favorable outcome. I know that within the traditional astrology community, more and more practitioners of more traditional Hellenistic astrology are saying that you should not do any new moon or full moon rituals at the time of an eclipse, because the energy is too potent, too powerful, and it could ricochet backwards and cause you problems. And so it's I think it's up to you, to kind of hold these two different perspectives in your mind and go, okay, do I feel like at this auspicious, powerful time, I want to move my energies in alignment with what might be particularly strong action, or do I want to trust that the action is just going to do what it needs to do? My personal feeling about it is that we are creating intention all the time by what we do, what we say, the energies, where we put our energies. And to, at any given time, every regular day, but especially at days where the astrology is potent, it makes perfect sense to me to do something about it, to use it, to be in alignment with it. Now, in that, I feel like it's always important that we recognize that we are limited in our humanness. And if we get very specific and precise about what we're manifesting, we may be putting energy into something that's not actually in our highest good, not really in our best path, and causing ourselves complicated problems. I can understand that perspective. But if we always hold our intentions with the philosophy and belief that we are wishing to manifest something for our highest good, for the highest good of all concerned, something that is beneficial for the world and all beings, and that we say, I now manifest my work to be seen by more. I manifest that I am successful to the highest possibility of what I am doing here, what my sole purpose is in this life. If we have some level of specific in it, but we also have this generality of understanding that it's always about our spiritual purpose, then I don't feel we're going to be in a problem. Like, imagine it's your highest soul's purpose to become a paid writer for astrology.com. And they have a job, they're looking for someone, and they are going to pay this great salary, and you're a great writer and you want to be a writer, but you don't know that exists. And in your solar eclipse ritual, you put in as your manifestation, I have 5 clients a week, or uh, I write my blog and 50 people read it. And when you could have millions of people read the blog in astrology.com that you get paid for, right? I mean, I think that's the kind of thing that people start to stress over, that you might be guiding yourself in a more limited way because that's all you're thinking about, and not letting yourself go for more. It reminds me of a little story that I've told before, when I was a single mother in Taos and I was looking for a rental house, and I only had $600 a month max to spend. And therefore I was only looking at certain houses, which were terrible, decrepit, 2-bedroom, 1-bath houses. And when someone told me about this house, well, actually, I saw the ad for it that was 600, but it was like 3 bedrooms and 2 stories and had a workshop and all the things that I would love to have. But it just sounded too good to be true. It sounded too big, too amazing, and I didn't trust that it could be that inexpensive and match my budget. And so I ignored it. And then when a real estate person who I happen to know pointed it out to me, told me about it, and I went to see it, it was perfect and they loved me and I got it, and it was a great place to raise my boys. It had equipment all over it, earth moving equipment, like just like a boy's paradise, and it was on many acres. So that's like the perfect example of the way that we are certain really positive potentials are hidden from us. We can't see sometimes the actual benefit that are coming to us. And that really takes me to the essence of eclipses, which is that we often say in astrology that we are eclipsed out of a job or eclipsed into a job, eclipsed into a relationship. Something radical happens at the time of the eclipse, and we're shocked by it, not ready for it. And sometimes that's a negative shock. It's the loss side of things. And I'm hesitant to say this because I recognize that there are some things that are super painful that happen around eclipses, like people that someone loves in their family or close to them, will die or get sick or something like that that seems to be associated with the timing of the eclipse. And so eclipses get this bad rap when things happen that we don't want. We're suddenly our company's downsized, we're furloughed, we're let go. Um, we find out that our partner is, exiting. Things like that can happen that are really painful, and they take a long time, if ever, to deal with, comprehend, understand the big picture. Because there's nothing worse than when something really traumatic happens to you and someone says, oh, well, it's all for the greater good. It's all, meant to be. If you've ever been in that situation where you're struggling with your grief, shock, and pain, you want to punch that person, spiritually, of course, but you want to punch them because in that moment, there's no capacity to see, oh, how great this is and how it's all going to turn out. So I want to say that I have great empathy and compassion for the kinds of shocks and pains and changes that we experience that are too painful to bear in the moment, and we cannot see the good. But I will say that in general, the way that I think of eclipses is that things happen connected to that eclipse that are moving you toward your soul's destiny. Okay, eclipse changes move you toward your soul destiny, whether you're ready or not. And if you're ready, you may feel like the most magical, amazing thing happened. It's like what you want, what you're ready for. It is that writing contract that suddenly is there. It's, a trip to the place you've always wanted to be. It's meeting that person that you feel is your soulmate. It is, all the goodness that could possibly happen, just, kind of almost in an instant. And so we'll see that with eclipses. Uh, but we'll also see that something is released, something is done, something is let go of. And as humans, we don't like that. Even like you want a new job, you don't like where you're working, and the eclipse comes along and you lose the job. Now, there's a really good chance you're going to get a new job pretty quickly because the eclipse will make changes quickly. But in that moment of losing the job and being out of work and being afraid about what will happen, it feels like the eclipse is a bad thing, bad, good, as humans, the way that we say it. So we have to be able to hold it lightly, this whole process, and also know that it's pretty rare that the eclipse events happen right on the day, right? They don't happen exactly on the day of the eclipse. They can actually be happening within weeks, maybe even a month before the eclipse, and then a little bit after. But mostly what I see with the eclipses is that because we're running in seasons that are about 6 months apart, And remember, eclipses are new moons and full moons with a lot of power to them. That in 3 months after an eclipse, where you're going to have related new moons and full moons that square the eclipse, you will have some kind of change about whatever was initiated in the eclipse. And then 3 months after that, when you're actually 6 months after the eclipse, then you're very likely to have the change totally activated, manifested, brought together. So a good example of that might be that an eclipse occurs in your fourth house. Oh, here's another thing that I want to say about eclipses. They are very strong when they are within a few degrees of a planet or an angle, or of course the nodes, which are that means you're having some kind of nodal return. They're very powerful when they're that way. If they're not, if they're just in the house and there's no planets or anything around them, they're more like background noise. They're more like, oh, this is what I'm thinking about. This is what I'm wondering about. I maybe like to make some changes in this area of life. But the real strong eclipse will come when it's within, I would say, 3 degrees, maybe 5 degrees at most of a particular planet. So let's just say you have your sun in the fourth house, you have an eclipse on your sun. Very suddenly, you decide, I need to move. I can't stand living here any longer. But nothing really happens, but in terms of moving. But 3 months later, you find out about a job in another place that you're, well suited for, and you apply for it. And there's the period of different interviews. And then 3 months after that, when the matching eclipse occurs, so 6 months after that original eclipse where you got the idea to move, you actually make the move. Now, since eclipses are happening every 6 months, imagine this, that we're in this rolling series of eclipses, one after the other and playing out over a period of time. And some people say, however many minutes the eclipse lasts, that's how many months that eclipse is activated for you. And so you've got all these ways of timing on top of timing, tissue paper on top of tissue paper around the possibilities of what's happening. And then, of course, remember, you've got your transits and progressions and everything else happening in your chart, which is also, part of this dance, this, kind of classical orchestral symphony of the many, many different things that are showing what could be changing in your life. But I'll say that when an eclipse is particularly strong, and let's just say when you have a number of planets that are in the signs where eclipses are happening. So for instance, in this last year, almost year and a half, if you have a lot of planets in Libra and Aries, it's likely that a lot of change is going on for you during this period of time. And I know many here have a lot of planets in Pisces and Virgo. And the first eclipse that we are talking about today is the eclipse that just happened, a lunar eclipse in the sign of Pisces. So a sun in Virgo and a moon in Pisces, 25 degrees. And so this is the entree, this is the beginning of eclipses that are going to be affecting you if you have Pisces and Virgo planets, and to a certain extent opposite, not opposite, but the square opposition, which is the mutable signs of Sagittarius and Gemini. Mostly we apply eclipses to conjunctions in opposition, like say if the solar eclipse is in a sign that the the opposite sign to it will also, definitely feel that impact. But the signs that square the eclipse pattern are also often impacted, and you will feel those energies and the change. So the eclipses that we're going to be talking about today are the lunar eclipse at 25 Virgo that we just had. And then we're going to be talking about the solar eclipse in the sign of Libra that is coming soon to a theater near you. And that one is October 2nd, and it's basically at 10 degrees of Libra. And both of these eclipses have planets connected to them that add a certain amount of firepower. Now I'm going to share the screen with you. Okay, so here's the eclipse that we just had. And you can see there's 25, almost 26 degrees. You'd round it up. 26 degrees of Pisces, and see how close it is to Neptune, the Pisces planet, in the sign of Pisces. And it's very close to the North Node, of course, because it wouldn't be an eclipse unless it was somewhat close. But it is out of sign, okay? And that's because the nodes are now at 6.5. They're moving backwards. They'll get to 0. They'll move into Pisces and Virgo, as I said. I think it's important to note that Saturn is in Pisces also, because this is just a key part of what we've been dealing with now since March of 2023. We've had Neptune in Pisces giving us this onslaught of Piscean energy and opening us up to compassion, spirituality, things happening, legalization of gay marriage, legalization of cannabis. Meanwhile, lots of water damage, floods, hurricanes, pandemic diseases. Neptune Pisces rule kind of chronic disease situations. So we've been having, the good, bad, and the ugly of Neptune in Pisces all these years, meant to open up our compassionate hearts, to bring us into oneness, into alignment, to understand that we are part of this fabric of existence. And now it's at the very tail end. Next year, it's going to move into Aries. Like it does, it's going to go back and forth. It's going to go a little into Aries and back to Pisces, a little bit into Aries. So we're at that borderline with Neptune. And we're also at this borderline with Saturn, because Saturn came into Pisces in March of 2023. And to me, it's like the cleanup crew. It's like Neptune and Pisces has been raining Pisces energy onto us. And Saturn is coming along with a box going, let's discipline this, let's structure this, let's make this real. Like you can't just swim in this foggy ocean endlessly. You need to bring this into your life in a mature way. You need to use this Pisces for your transcendent creativity, for bringing compassion to all beings, for having a spiritual practice that helps you be in this Pisces mode without being in overwhelm or addiction and dependency and just numbing out. Like when I say the word addiction, we can all like plug in and go, oh, addiction, drugs and alcohol. But, addiction and dependency is so much more. It's anything we do that keeps us from being whole, clear, centered in a spiritual way. So that can be overwork. It can be endlessly scrolling on Instagram or TikTok. It can be going shopping all the time. It can be relationships where we're just immersed in a bubble of illusion. So there's lots and lots of ways that normal, sort of healthy people fall prey to Pisces in its negative expressions. And Saturn is here to help us see that. Saturn points out to you by bringing in kind of what feels like inner critic heavy thoughts, like, oh, I always do this, I always lose myself, I always sacrifice, I always put myself down. Like whatever it is you do that keeps you from full soul-centered expression, Saturn is here to help you not do that so much, and to align the Pisces energy in a strong way, in a way that works for you and works for your spiritual path. And remember, again, an eclipse eclipses you to your destiny, to your high spiritual path, whether you're ready or not. Now, a lunar eclipse, we can focus on the sun and say, this is where the light is directing. So the light is directing toward discernment, toward skillfulness, problem solving, toward being of service, being practical. Pisces is absolutely not practical. And all this Pisces is just high spirit energy. It is the bliss, the oneness, and we're asked to partake of that and structure it into our lives, and be careful that we're not in the illusion delusion part of it. And so we have this whole construct here working together. The Aries saying, are you doing what's right for you? Now, I've been saying this over and over again in every forecast, that Aries, high level spiritual self-orientation, to feel like your soul is alive, brave, free, doing what you're here to do. The Libra South Node is, letting go of over giving to others in ways that harm you. Remember, that's the definition of codependence. It's not giving to others. That's not codependent. But codependence is giving so much to others that you are harming yourself. You are not giving what you need to you. So the Aries takes you into what you need to do. And Chiron in Aries is also helping with that. And at the time of the eclipse, we've got Chiron in Aries in a very tight opposition to Venus in Libra. So Venus in Libra saying relate in a loving, harmonious, balanced way, but make sure you're healing any wound you have that's telling you that you can't be an agent in your own life, that you do in fact get to do what you wish to do for you. And as if that's not enough, Mars in Cancer forming a square to the nodes at the time of the eclipse, Mars bringing a fine point on, yes, you can do what you want, you can initiate, you can start, you can pioneer, you can exercise will and desire, and do it in Cancerian way, nurturing, healing, loving, unconditional, kind. So this whole construct, September 17th, is all about how to find that balance. And if we're confused still, even after all of this, the opposition of the nodes, the T square to Mars, is a three-legged table. The missing table leg is Capricorn. And that tells you that what you have to do is be resolute, strong, connected to your soul purpose goals, and set boundaries. Okay, so setting boundaries. And here's Saturn, the implement of setting boundaries in Pisces in a compassionate way. Oh, look at that. It's opposite Mercury. It's verbal in Virgo, Mercury in Virgo, verbal in a skillful way, cutting through, solving the problems, speaking the truth about it. And as if that's not enough, in this full moon, The moon is a kite outlet, probably moon Neptune together. Kite outlet, you can see that this kite formation, kites are a grand trine, and the grand trine is Uranus, breakthrough, radical awakening, authenticity, to Pluto, transformation, last couple of months of transforming whatever is corrupt in ourselves in the world, and the sun, choice, action in a skillful, discerning way. So all that earth energy is helping us at the time of this eclipse. And the outlet, the focal point, Moon, Neptune, is holding into that deep, deep spiritual vibration of oneness and bringing our soul energy in its most positive way and letting go of any ways that we are numbing out and not being clear about our destiny and who we are. Now, I'll talk a little bit about the upcoming solar eclipse, and then we'll go into questions and looking at charts, of course. So the solar eclipse happening on October 2nd, 2:50 p.m. Eastern, that's 11:50 a.m. Pacific time, just to give you your bearings. And this one will be one of the last eclipses in the Aries Libra continuum. And we have a sun and moon together. That makes it, a new moon. And near the nodes, that makes it an eclipse. And what's connected to it is Mercury. The asteroid of the week for me, the one that I'm focusing on right now, is Juno. And really, I'll spend a month or a few months just putting one asteroid in at a time and checking it in everybody's charts and getting to know it and feel into it without cluttering the chart up with all the asteroids at the same time. So we'll add that, Juno relates to marriage, commitment, intensity, and sometimes, the shadow side of it can be too much, can be a certain obsession energy. But all of this whole stellium in Libra is about balance, harmony, relationship, peace, justice. And on the relationship level, again, it's still about, can you let go of relationships where you're over giving? But, an eclipse, a solar eclipse is a new start. And there can be a wonderful new start here of relationships that are truly healed, balanced, give and take. And with Mercury, the communication can be very balanced. This is a lovely eclipse for relationships of all kinds, maybe setting a new course in relationships that you've already been in. And the North Node, of course, in Aries is still bringing us that message about self-orientation and feeling alive and free to be in your own direction, as the same as the Chiron message. Now, Neptune still in Pisces, still in its retrograde phase, brings the very strong, compassionate energy. And you can see that we have this little mini kite, not a true kite with a grand trine, although there's another grand trine I'm going to mention in a moment. But I think it's interesting that Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, the three outer transpersonal planets, are connected at this point by either trine or sextile. I think this is very important for the world changes we're in. This, as Pluto goes back into Capricorn and is doing that last final sweep of what is corrupt around structure and how can we bring a new structure into being. Uranus in Taurus, helping us get unstuck and see the ways that we are stuck, and Neptune in Pisces, bringing the compassion, the spirituality. Those three are working together. The other three planets that are working together at the moment of the eclipse are Saturn in Pisces, so structuring and stabilizing things in a compassionate, intuitive, creative way. Trine to Mars in Cancer, taking action, pioneering, initiating in a nurturing, healing way. and to Venus, relationship, attracting relationship and resources in a deep, powerful, penetrating way, in a way of transformation. And so this grand trine in water is emotional, intuitive, nurturing, healing. There's tremendous potential for the healing of relationships of all kinds coming from that solar eclipse. So if you're looking at how you want to engage with these eclipses in a ritual, in a new moon ritual, and for my purposes, and even in a solar eclipse, one of the best ways to work with the energy is to make a list of what you're manifesting in present tense. I have this, I have that, I am this, I am that. So I am in clear and good relationship with all. I have loving, kind, balanced, harmonious relationships. Uh, those kinds of connectivity. My life is harmonious, even as I am clear about engaging in my highest destiny. Like, really put those kinds of affirmations together, write it on a piece of paper, and put it under a candle or a crystal, and allow the universe to take it for the highest good of all concerned. The lunar eclipse that we already had, or the next full moon that we will have in October, this is where you think about letting go of things. And if there's something that's not working in your life, you can say, I release. I release lack. I release inner critic. I release, I release, I release. And then normally, to release in an energetic way, we will burn that piece of paper safely, like in a sink or a barbecue, and imagine that energy leaving us. So these are our eclipses. They are beautiful. They are potent. Many of you will be experiencing these eclipses directly in important places in your chart. And I encourage you to meditate on allowing the eclipses to activate you to your highest good. You can ask the universe for as smooth and as easeful as possible. You can ask yourself to release and let go of anything that doesn't serve you, whether you know what it is or not, and let yourself be in alignment with these major changes that are happening this month, September, and next month, October.